Hey, Mark from Soundmasters here, and today I'm joined by two very talented album art cover designers. We're going to cover why an album cover is so important, what makes a great album cover, and in particular for vinyl, why it's such a great platform for it, because you've got that canvas, you've got that larger area to work with. It's a fantastic interview, some great topics covered, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. So let's get straight into it. Hey, and welcome to the show. My guests today are Spencer Drate and Judith Salavetz, who are well known within the industry for designing some of the best known album covers you'll have seen. So they're fantastic designers of album covers, and they're also revered for their contributions to the rich tapestry that is the music industry. So, on top of that, um, you'll know a lot of the artists that they've designed album covers for. So it includes the likes of Talking Heads, it includes Lou Reed, it includes the Ramones. So some big names in terms of the album covers that they've designed. They're also, I believe, and you can kind of go through this in a moment, Spencer and Judith, but you've got in terms of you've been nominated for a National Design Award in 2019, I believe. You've also been
hmm
nominated for several Grammy Awards, and you're also one of the only designers of album covers to have their own archival collection in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So there's a lot to go through here, and really, I think you're the best people to go through your background and explain that. So let's just start the conversation. If you could just tell the audience a little bit about yourselves and your background and what you guys do.
I myself was schooled at University of Bridgeport by a dynamic Yale faculty, so which was one of the top graphic design schools, if you know the Yale. So I came out of there, and I literally started working on book covers in New York. Um, I ran into a friend who happened to be working for Apple Records on John Lennon's Imagine album trade ads. He was handling all the trade ads for Apple. So I combined with him to do the trade ad for the Imagine album. So I was very lucky. Without a portfolio, by the way. He knew my work. He said he knew I was a designer, but he never saw my. But anyway, I fell into a lot of things very easily. With Sire, I started with ESP Disc, which is a very renegade jazz label. First albums of the famous like Pharoah Sanders, Gato Barbieri, um, and Bob James. But then I transferred over to Sire Records, where I met somebody online in a movie theater. And for some reason, I started talking to him. He says, "Well, I need a type guy, Mark. I need a type guy." So I said, "Okay." So I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm doing an album called Richard Hell and the Voidoids, Blank Generation, which happens to be one of the top punk albums in history." And I got into there doing simple typography, literally. The art director liked my work, John Gillespie. So he threw me into everybody there. He threw me into the Ramones, threw me into talk, literally threw me in, guaranteeing me I may not be the designer, but I'll put you in there. And they all love my work. So I worked on End of the Century, Road to Ruin for the Ramones. I worked on co-design Fear of Music, up for a Grammy Award nomination. Album packaging, a very big award. It's a dynamic album cover. In a MoMA show, in a Rock Archives with our collection, along with the Ramones covers. And the Pretenders I work with, Plastic Bertrand, the Dead Boys, endless. Then after that, I meet the dynamic Judith Salavetz in a restaurant for some reason. I'm sitting at a table with my friend Holly Green, who invited. She's a very big music publisher, and we'd always go to a restaurant. So this restaurant, I'm sitting there, I'm looking over and seeing Judith waitressing. I said, I said to my friend Alan next to me, I said, Alan, I got to meet this girl. I mean, there's something about her. I got to meet her. And ends up, I see a silk screen she did of her work. And I said, you know what? She is something. I had this feeling intuitively she's dynamic. So she worked on the first Crenshaw album, which got into an AIGA
Mm.
cover award, judged by Annie Leibovitz and Roger Black, a very big award that we received. And from there on, it's like, but Judith could. I mean, we worked on some major packaging like Bon Jovi together. I worked on U2 Octung Baby, and we've combined for a lot of great groups. But Judith, you should tell them now about your
Yeah,
beginnings.
please do.
It's pretty. It's funny, Spencer. Remembering the very um, first time we met. So I received an MFA, a Master Fine Art. I'm sorry, not a master, BFA, Bachelor of
Mm.
Fine Arts. I don't know how that's interpreted in
Oh no, that
England.
makes
How
sense.
you,
Yeah, yeah,
it's um, it's
yeah.
a degree, and with an emphasis on graphic design. And I was not. I've always had a love for graphics and a passion actually, and it came across with all the art that I was doing at the time. And Spencer spoke about a silk screen that when we met, I was working at this very cool hip restaurant in the West Village. It was a very small French restaurant. In fact, the interesting thing is a couple of celebrities would come there for brunch because we served an amazing brunch at this restaurant. We had like Robert De Niro used to show up there
Wow.
with his then wife um, practically every Sunday for brunch. He wasn't there that Sunday that I met Spencer,
Okay.
but he was there quite a bit.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was working on my BFA and met Spencer. And Spencer, of course, he's very good at the spiel, and he told me about what he was working on. And I got kind of excited because it was graphics, and of course I was also a music
Mm.
lover. And so he asked if I was interested in working on, the project he was working on at the moment, and that was the Marshall Crenshaw album cover. And I said,
Wow.
of course. And, that was the first project, the first job that he and I collaborated on.
Cool.
And after that, Spencer would um, so he Spencer is very good at the side of our collaboration, getting the work. In other words, you also have to understand the times. Those times, they were not great for women
Yeah.
um, in, um, in certain uh, positions, like even for artists of any kind, and anything you did as a woman, it was a very difficult time. You were not respected, or you weren't taken seriously. So Spencer was always the one out there in
Mm.
front, making the connections and bringing it. Sort of, he would go shopping for the work and then bring home the shopping bag filled with all
Yeah.
sorts of goodies for us. And then the two of us would sit down at the table, and we'd feast on what he brought home, or back to the studio, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah.
That's just an analogy. Because I was a woman, I was a young woman. I mean, there were incidents where we would go to meetings together, but the people in charge of the meetings, our prospective clients, would never make eye contact with me, or would not, when there were ideas being thrown around the room. It
Mm.
was, God forbid I said anything, because nobody responded, or nobody took me seriously. I was a woman, so to
Right.
speak.
Right.
It was a bad time for
Yeah.
women, um, in any field, actually. So, but that didn't stop
Yeah.
Spencer and I. We we pushed forward, and yeah, so Marshall Crenshaw was the first one, and then we moved on to many other clients. At the time, interestingly enough, we were not, we were at the, timing in life, Mark, is
Mm.
everything. We were at the right place at the right time. Many of the people that we designed for, we did art for, we were not sure, what direction their careers were going to take. We did not
Yep.
know that, well, actually, I knew John Bon Jovi was going to skyrocket, but Spencer didn't. um,
Right.
so
I can
he,
tell you.
he was nobody. Nobody knew him. I mean, Bon Jovi playing in small clubs in New Jersey. He had a following, but he wasn't selling
Yeah.
a million records.
It was the first
Until
album.
until we
Yeah.
until we designed that first LP for him, and then
Right.
that went through the roof. I mean, he must just,
Wow.
I don't know how many millions were sold on that one.
Yeah, I guess sometimes
Um,
you just don't
but
know,
yeah,
do you?
so
You have a feeling perhaps on an artist, but you don't know for certain
yeah,
how it's going to turn
no,
out.
we did. Well, I kind of
Yeah.
knew. I with Bon Jovi, that was, he walked into our studio with a cassette. Do
Runaway.
you remember Spencer? We
Yeah.
Spencer and I, we had like facing drawing tables in our studio. We faced each other, our tables. And he just came in and he stood in this, I remember him standing in the center of our studio in between our two drawing tables, and he gave the cassette to Spencer, and he says, this is going to be our, this is what we're working on in the
Yeah.
studio. And they were recording, the band was recording at the name of the studio, Spencer, was,
I don't know, but Runaway was a single,
Wow.
Judith.
Okay.
Runaway.
Yeah.
yeah, Runaway is the single that he wanted us to hear.
Yeah,
So we
exactly.
heard Runaway with Bon Jovi in the room on the cassette.
Yeah, the thing is,
Uh,
I mean, the
What a
thing
moment.
is,
Yeah.
Judith came to me right after he left,
no, so
and
no,
she's,
I
oh,
listened to this cassette. I mean,
right.
Mark, it was really, it blew me out of the water
Mm.
when I heard it. A lot of
Yeah. It does.
clients listen to them, and it's essential for us, by the way, in getting back to what makes a great album
Yeah.
cover. We always like to listen to the music, whether it has an impact on the design or not. We have to hear the
Oh,
music. We can't just,
of course.
blindly go and come up with, I mean, we can, but we never wanted to do that. We always wanted to hear the
Yeah.
music. So there we are in the room, and the cassette's playing Runaway, and I like, and then he said, okay, so so he left the studio, and Spencer turned to me and he said, oh my God, I don't know about this one.
Well,
I mean, he
what
doesn't
Judith said
stop.
to me, Judith, let me talk now. What Judith said to me exactly is in my mind for all my life till I leave this earth. She said, he's going to sell 1 million. That's the quote. He's going to
You were
sell a
right.
million. And I said, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, right.
Meaning
He said, yeah,
condescending.
right.
And
Yeah.
because I didn't, I'll tell you something. I worked on Billy Squire's Don't Say No, which was multi-platinum, if you
Yeah.
know that album. Amazing Reinhold Mack production. And that had amazing songs, great guitar, amazing everything. Every song was great. When I heard that, no
Mm.
problem. But when I heard Runaway, it sounded like she's a little runaway. Da, 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 da. I couldn't get into that for some reason. Now,
Well,
Judith
there you
did.
go.
She was
Yeah.
right on with
You
that.
just
But
Oh
I
man,
couldn't
I
relate to
thought,
that.
I
you
knew,
just would.
not
Yeah.
only was it the
Yeah.
song, Mark. Mark, listen. Do you remember what he looked like in those days? I mean, he
Yeah,
was
good
like
looking boy.
really hot. As a woman, he was a good-looking guy. He was so cute and so handsome, and he could belt out a tune, and I just thought, this is
Yeah.
like, this guy is superstar. And Spencer, yeah, right, Judith.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
On to the next
the other thing is, I got to tell you, Arthur Mann was his music
lawyer.
lawyer who was friends
yeah.
with us, and he called me up and said, "Would you like to work on the new album, Bon Jovi?" I just signed him to Polygram with another group, but anyway, I said, "Of course," not knowing who he was, like Judith and I
Mm.
didn't know who he was. But the thing that he told me was very strange. He says, "Spencer, what do you think of the name Bon
Mm.
Jovi?" So I said, "Mark, I said." it sounds like Van Halen. No, Bon
There you go.
Jovi.
Yeah.
Now, wait a minute. This is the catch,
Yeah.
though, Mark. He would come in to the studio and say, Spencer, did you see the Jump video? He would go crazy over Van Halen, and he ended up using Van Halen's people after the first
Okay.
album. So that's interesting
Yeah.
note.
So he was. Yeah.
And also, if you wanted to add to that, I on that album, they didn't have when we shot the when we went to do the photography for it, they did not have a stylist. The band,
Judith styled him.
and so they said to me, like John said to me, or I don't remember if it was Arthur Mann, the lawyer. They said, "Why don't you do the
Oh, cool.
styling?"
Yeah.
And I never did
Yeah.
styling, but I do remember John
He's good
said
at that,
to
yeah.
me, "I want to look just like Van Halen. I want the Van Halen look." That's
Yeah.
he was obsessed with Van
Yeah,
Halen.
I
he
hadn't.
was.
And he got the Van Halen look. He
Oh,
did, but that was one of the first and I think maybe last bands I
okay.
styled.
Oh, going into this
But
interview, I had no idea.
I think I wanted to get into our first point, which is
Yeah.
and by the
Well,
way, we've been interviewed in AGI video and in the AIGA permanent collection and in the MoMA permanent collection to let people know also, which is very
cool.
dynamic.
Yeah.
But the first point,
Yep.
the first point you brought up, Mark, I thought would be interesting. Why is a great
Well,
great album cover
yeah. What?
important? Well, it's
Yeah.
like
Why
an
is a great
image.
album
Yeah,
cover important? That's certainly the first thing I wanted to get into. But may I just say before we move on, thanks for the story
sure.
there. I just love the background of that, and it sounds like a true partnership in terms of the way that you worked, and these things often feel like they're meant to be, don't they? Like it's kind of fate. So it was a
Yeah,
nice,
with what I
yeah,
felt is that Judith was a female and I'm a male, so therefore she sees things that I
yeah,
don't
sure,
see, and I see things that she doesn't see. So there would be times when she said, "You, Spencer, you would handle it," and I would say, "Judith, you
yeah,
handle this," because I know each one of us had. That's the greatest thing about a man and a woman working
yeah,
together, that
mm,
you have two different viewpoints in different
yeah,
areas. Because some of them get feminine and some of them get
mm.
masculine. You know what I'm saying? So you want to get that full. You'll get the full package with two
Oh yeah,
people
no,
like that.
absolutely. The way you described that, it did just it sounded to me like it was a perfect yin and yang partnership. That the way that you got started, and,
Yeah,
and this
yeah,
is why it's worked. I think from the sounds of it. So, but yeah, the first question I wanted to get
yeah.
into was why is a great album cover so important? So yeah, take the stage.
Well, I'd start off, Judith. Let me talk, and
Yeah,
then
no, go for it, Fed.
yeah, and then you come in.
You do the
What
masculine version, and I'll do the
There you go.
Yeah, the
feminine.
Yeah.
feminine version, right? So it's like an album cover to me is like so important an image that is so important. Next to the album being played, the next important thing is
Mm,
the cover, and so you want to project uh, a very strong image. That makes you also by doing that, people think that wow, you got a great head. Like Talking Heads did a lot of great packaging besides what I worked on with them. So you could see that they had this amazing mind besides the music.
mm,
So that's very dynamic in the sale also of knowing that a party automatically, without saying anything, is doing something that's dynamic. So
mhm,
and it's like a logo. It's like a logo. You want to do a great logo for a company or whatever. So to me, that's the important basis, and the complement that makes that happen is when you combine great visuality and the most important thing,
mm,
typography, which Judith and I are very good at. And most people are not good designers. Be honest with you, type, but a
yeah.
lot are, and you combine those two things and you get a great design. It's hard to explain what you have to have that talent. I think it's very innate. You can teach a certain amount, but the rest is
Mm,
up to you. But typography, I have to accentuate, is so important
I agree.
to the making of a cover, and also the concept, visuality, whether it's photography
Yeah.
or art. But I think that the artist must have that to sell with their album or 45 or even their CD package, whatever. And that's my little take on
Yeah.
that. Judith, you could add to that?
Oh yeah, I think that we everybody knows that a picture is what's that expression? A thousand is
Thousand
equivalent
words.
Yep.
to a thousand words or a
That's
million
true.
words. So
Yep.
Yeah.
for me, the image, the picture that that the buyer of the album, at the time they were LPs that we worked on, and then down the line they turned into smaller CDs. But
Mm.
the picture is what is so important. The image, because that's, it's obviously it's not the primary thing. The music is the primary thing, but the picture, I feel, leads one into the music, and the picture is
Yep.
what you see first before you hear the music. And that image, whatever is on that cover, pretty much stays with you. I mean, just like, think about some of the great album covers, like you know uh Rolling Stones, what would the oh my
Maybe
god, I'm getting senile moments.
sticky
The
fingers.
Sticky
Maybe.
fingers,
Yeah.
Judith. Sticky
Yes, to
fingers.
give
Yeah.
it. I mean, it just, that image, it stays
Yeah.
with you, and that connects. When you see that picture, you think Rolling
Mm.
Stones, and you think about some of the songs that are,
Yep.
on that album. So I think what's really important is that image on that cover has to be just something that, the viewer can connect
Mm.
with, and that
Mhm.
we were always trying to, for us, for Spencer and I, when we designed covers and when we had free reign, we wanted that cover. We wanted to love that cover. We wanted to,
Yep.
it's like buying, a painting and hanging it up in your house, in your apartment. I mean, you're going to live with that for a long time. So you want to really have a love for that painting that's on your
Mm.
wall
Mhm.
for years. For us, it had to be a love for the image on that cover for
Yeah.
us to,
Yep.
to let it go. It had to be. So
And
it's
I
it's
don't.
the image.
Yeah. And I want to bring up also. I'm going to show you some
Yep.
covers now that we both have picked for our Art of Vinyl cover show, which is on YouTube. A 12-minute
Yeah.
wonderful view of 45 and LP covers, and also on our Music Packaging HCTV interview with,
That's
oh my
great.
God, 175 45s and 50 L. Anyway, let's show you
Yeah.
some covers with
C-
type, the
Can I
first
just
group, and then without
summarize
type
though?
covers that we think are very dynamic.
Yeah,
I'll start
go for
off
it. No, I'd
with
love to hear what you think makes these album covers great. And I know some of these are ones that you've worked on, and I know some of these are ones that you find influential yourself as well. So, but yeah, go ahead.
yeah, this
Starting with
is
the Talking Heads.
Talking
Yeah.
Heads. Yeah, co-designed myself with Sire
Hmm.
Records, and the deck plate design with minimal
Mm.
type, and I did the type with David
Yep.
Byrne, typewriter type, and closed it. And this was Grammy nominated. Deck plate design, concept by
Mm.
Jerry Harrison, by the way. Um, and this was a great album design combination because I had a Yale schooling and they had a RISD
Mm.
schooling, except for Jerry went to Harvard, but it was the Albers Foundation, and I think it really David loved my
Mm.
typography. One thing, and I freaked out working with him because I didn't know he's such an anal, serious-looking guy. I said I'm going to get killed if but it worked out perfect. He
Yeah.
loved my work. I loved working on it, and it was easy. The elements were easy.
It's really
So
striking, isn't it?
that's one. I'll go through
No,
them
that's
very
fine. That's
fast. I got
fine.
a number of them. I'm showing
I
these
know you mentioned
covers.
typography though, Spencer. I just wanted
Yeah,
to say that I really think that it's one of those undervalued things, the typography side of things. It's one of those things that I think unless it's very wrong, people almost don't notice it. But when it's right, it makes
right.
all the difference. And so that, yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
look at this cover, friend. Good point, Mark. Because look at
mm,
this cover. This is a dynamic Mick
yep,
Rock photograph, and it's a beautiful color photograph. The only cover without leather jackets to make a commercial
mm,
image his
yeah,
sire wanted. But the
that's it,
type,
yeah,
I said I had to treat the type very tastefully. Let the
yeah,
photograph stand out. No funny junk with the type. Just very simple, and I think it works in
yep,
that space. And that's what we're
yep.
talking about. Just
the
simplicity,
type almost.
which Judith and I do a lot of.
Yep.
This is another great cover, Robert Ellis Oral, RCA, that I worked with Steve Byram on. And the front and the back work together because of the concept.
So super cool. Yeah,
that was
yeah,
a
I love
lot
that.
of shows.
Yeah, that mirror type thing.
You know, it's very, and the type is very minimal again, but it works, I think, very well. And here's our dynamic, Judith, our Marshall Crenshaw cover.
Okay.
And
that's an interesting typography.
Judith did something amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the typography is interesting because Judith, I had to get a color for that front cover type, and that's critical. And Judith right away picked this blue, this very beautiful PMS blue to match. And that's what makes this cover. It really does, as simple as it sounds. If it's another color, it's not going to work.
Well, it
another
doesn't,
color will not
it
work.
doesn't take away from it. You didn't want to, you wanted your eyes to take, when you looked at it, and it was the image, you wanted to see the whole thing. You didn't want your eyes to wander to the left or the right. You see the whole image with the, with the type, with the name and the image and the picture.
Yeah, so that
and the
picture, the color of that type's very carefully chosen, isn't it, in terms of how it.
That was pretty difficult actually to pick, to get that color. I mean, things that are simple like that look so easy. It was really, I remember that, Spencer. It was I went through hundreds of colors before that was the one.
That's the one.
So,
and that's why it's in the AIGA cover show,
which one aspect of the cover. There's so many other things. On that cover that make it a great.
Annie Leibovitz voted this cover in, by the way, and she always told me this is one of the covers that she really liked in her life. Set a whole trend with color tinting and stuff. And the other point of this is that the color tinting is an oil base. So by being an oil-based color tinted cover, you're getting full color. And so even when it's printed, it loses something, but it's still dynamic in the color area.
Yeah.
So Christine Delancia did the color tinting. Christine Delancia did the color tinting, and Gary Green did the photo.
Very harmonious, the whole thing. Like you say, you want to look at it, and it's like a collective thing. Everything just kind of gels. You're not wandering one way or the other.
Yes.
You look at the whole thing. There's a single piece.
Yeah, it's like Judith and I have good feedback. Like I always say, Judith, what do you think of this? And she's asking me, what do I think of that? I mean, I want to know that she has 100% okay on the visuality and the final product that we do, or even from the beginning of what we're doing from the concept. So here's the Lou Reed that we both worked on. Very famous cover, New York album. Wearing Abbott turned me on to this job for us, but there are different people stripped in. Blue dresses up in different fashion and stripped together in computer based on an old German photograph.
I didn't know
that. Of people in an alley. It was called People in an Alley, a gang in an alley. And the back is very.
Wait a minute! I don't think that was a German photograph. It was a photograph.
Yeah.
We didn't have a name to who took the photograph, but it was taken during the Depression in the 30s.
Oh, okay, right.
And I think it was in this country. It was an American photographer, probably, because it was the Depression 30s, in the United States.
And talking about the typography, I wanted Lou Reed not in solid letters, but in outline letters, so that the brick would come through from the background. It's a subtle thing, but if it was a full color type or dropout white type, it would have been too crazy. But when you see the outline, look at, even though it's big type, it's set back. It works with the photograph, which is very interesting.
And by the way, Waring Abbott was the photographer.
Yes, Waring Abbott.
Spencer mentioned his name. He was he was a pretty well-known rock photographer in those days. He photographed a lot of musicians. Kiss. He was big time with Kiss.
Yeah.
Now this one's a controversial album that Judith could talk about.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean Victory?
Victory. Well, with Jeffrey Hargrove, I've got to give the photographer Jeffrey Hargrove Thomas of the Helmut Newton-esque, I call it, photograph with the type running across the top. Judith sort of had the concept and setup of the photograph. So this is a very controversial album. I mean, this almost didn't get printed, but they printed it
Yeah.
the last minute. They printed it actually. These are Friends of the Scorpions, a
Okay.
famous
Yeah.
rock group, and they're from Germany. And but it's
You
a
know, hard
beautiful
rock.
photograph.
I mean, what else does that image tell you? It's like hard rock and
Yeah.
roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's sex, drugs, and rock and
Yeah.
roll.
It says that in one picture, doesn't it? Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah.
And he
pretty
shot it.
well.
You know, it's interesting. It's like a Helmut Newton photograph type style of photograph. And Helmut Newton, if you know his work, is very into sexy women and German photographer,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
he's very
It
famous
was
in
like
that.
black
Right.
leather or
Yeah.
vinyl and whips and chains and what I don't know.
And now we're going to get into other
Okay. Yeah.
designers. So
Go for it.
we're starting with
Yeah.
Talking Heads, Speaking in Tongues, which I think is a beautiful piece of art, right, Judith, with a type.
Yes.
I like what they really treated the type too. Notice the spacing. It's odd spacing with the type. Fits into this art
That's clever.
piece.
Yeah.
I love this cover. And the back, the same thing. So we're talking about tasteful type and visuality
Oh,
here.
definitely.
Okay, the
Well,
famous
everybody
Led
knows
Zeppelin.
this one, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
George Hardy, the designer. Classic. You have to show this one. It's such a
Oh, yeah.
classic, you know, to me. And then Judith brought up Rolling Stone, so we have our famous sticky
It's not
fingers.
with the original zipper, is it? No.
Well, this didn't have.
Yeah.
That's an interesting story.
Yeah.
That's printed with
Yep.
a flat, but when they did the original, as you're talking about, they had a problem because the zipper was three-dimensional, and when they packed it in the boxes, a lot of them
I
got
heard that. It
destroyed.
was damaging the
There's a big
vinyl.
story about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The zipper was three-dimensional, pasted on, so they had to print after that a flat like
Yeah.
this. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes sense. Yeah. Actually damaging the record, wasn't it? So, yeah. Oh, but it's a
Oh
terrible
yeah.
country, though.
I mean, they had a lot of returns on
I'm
that
sure.
record.
Yeah. Sonic Youth.
Now this is
Yeah.
great, Sonic Youth. I mean, this is a great cover. I love this cover, the drawing. This is in a moment show with when I had
Pop art.
Talking Heads Take Me to the River sleeve in the same show with this.
It's a bit of pop art about it, I think.
But I love
Yeah.
the drawings. And it's interesting. These two people on the front cover were in a murder trial. Are you ready for that? They were in a murder
All right.
trial. And this was a drawing from the scene of that when they were in court.
Okay. Well, there's a story behind the cover. Gosh. Yeah.
I know. Now this was beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about. This is unbelievable, right, Judith? Look at this cover. You love this cover, right?
It's almost has real depth about it, doesn't it? Because you got that the foreground and everything that's more in your face, and then the background. It almost feels. What's that supposed to be like? Gaff tape, like kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like a
Yeah.
masking tape,
Yeah.
right? It's like that silver, the silver tape. Judith,
Yes. No,
you like
really,
that
I'm not.
cover?
Yeah, I'm not seeing the cover. So,
Oh, sorry.
really? Wow.
which cover is that you're?
It's called Ultra Vivid Scene.
Oh, I know it. Yeah, so that's like what it. I think that is masking tape. That
They probably shot it with masking tape.
yeah,
Right?
That's clever, isn't it?
Right. It is. You can see the grade of the tape on it. You can see the grade of the tape.
That's really clever.
Yeah, that is a beautiful. You know, it's like an abstract art painting.
Now we're going to go to the.
You can't.
Sergeant Pepper, which Judith could tell you, we were on a Sirius XM interview on radio talking about album covers. Very big show with Mark.
I don't know how much time you have, Mark, but you have like a lot of like background.
No, Judith, I'm going through fast, so we'll go fast.
Oh, right.
So anyway, this cover, we're on Sirius XM radio, and of
With
course
Mark
they said,
Goodman. I don't know if you remember who Mark Goodman is. He was one of the first VJs on MTV.
Right.
You know, video disc jockey. And he now has a Sirius FM radio show, and he hosts that with a partner. His partner is who was his partner? Spencer.
Alan Light.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So we were invited on their show one day do what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And but they were recording the show in they have studios at the there's a building in New York City that the Sirius people are in the company. So Spencer and I went in person to the to where they were recording it. So there was a recording studio, and in the recording, it was this room with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, and there were two or three other people on the side, and those other individuals were there to, in case one of their guests says something in the interview, they check them. They
Keep them in check.
they're there to make sure that you're not fibbing or you're not telling some tall tale, or it's not alternative facts.
No,
they want to make sure
moderators,
it's actually what you're talking about is factual. So it was really an interesting day in the studio, but they were talking about this album cover, and I think it was Alan Light, the Mark's partner, started talking about the designer of that cover. And so he mentioned the name of the designer,
Peter Blake.
Peter Blake, if you recall. And then he kept talking about Peter Blake, but he never mentioned Peter Blake's. At the time, he was married when Peter designed that cover. He designed it with his wife. In fact, his wife was instrumental in creating that cover. She was an artist. I don't know if you recall how that cover was made. They actually made full life-size images of a lot of the people on that cover.
Yeah, and wasn't it? It was supposed to be. I think originally they were asked for all their influences. The Beatles were asked to name a load of their influences, and I know there's a few people on there, and there was some element of controversy. I think I read somewhere that John Lennon wanted to put Hitler in there and various other things that were not allowed to make the cut. But they did have some elements of people like Pierre Schaeffer, who's like a French composer. All the sort of psychedelic stuff they did with tape and everything was a bit of an influence there, with like early sampling and musique concrète and things like that. So there's all these kind of influences in there. Some of them put in there by the designers themselves the people that you're talking about, and some of them coming from the band themselves. That's the story I know, but I'm sure from a design perspective and how it was made, these are lifestyle pop-ups and everything that they took it from. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, the story that you're talking, what you're mentioning is that's a whole nother story, and and going through all the people that the faces that are in that art piece. But to get back to the creating of the cover, it was done as a collaboration between husband and wife at the time, and Peter's wife, oh gosh, what was her name? Spencer, help me out here.
I don't know.
His wife's name.
But what happened was Judith mentioned the name, and so the people are checking up frantically on the side. And then after, when we left the interview, they came to the hall and thanked her so much, Mark. They thanked her for doing that.
So when you leave the recording studio, you have to be escorted out into the main, waiting area. There's like whatever security. So and the people that escorted us out of the recording room were two women that were their job was to check to see that whatever we were talking about was factual. So as we're walking out, one of the women turned to me and said, Judith, I just want you to know that we had a check. And you were right about the creation of that album cover. It was not just Peter, it was Peter and his wife. Right. And she was actually even more instrumental in creating the cover.
Well, there you go.
And by the way, they were so grateful because she said, you know what, that discrimination continues with women,
Mm.
even here at
It's back to
Sirius.
what you were
You
saying
know, we
at the
as
beginning.
women
Yeah.
are not taken. Yeah, it continues. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you, Spencer, for you know, it
Right.
continues.
Yeah.
We women have a really hard time in, you know, in our various chosen
Yeah. Well,
professions, whatever it may
she
be.
deserves
It's
she
really
deserves to
hard.
get the credit. So, good for you for putting that forward. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go on. So I'm going to show these quickly. This is Vaughn Oliver
Okay. Yeah.
Pixies,
Yeah. I
a
know the
very
Pixies. Yeah.
beautiful cover, which I think were well
Yeah.
known. He passed away this
Oh,
past
sorry
year.
to hear that.
One of the great influences in my life,
Yeah.
and Judith's also
So, what
Yeah.
makes
also
that
our life.
cover?
Yeah.
The second, this is great. This is an Anton
Hmm.
Corbin photograph, the famous Anton
Uh,
Corbin. Worked on U2 and
and
with
is all
me,
that
and
photography naturally, or is there some kind of processing of the photograph going
this
on there?
was Policy of
Yeah.
Truth was the name of it. Um, and Depeche Mode. And I think what's beautiful about Anton Corbin, he's like a painter photographer, and this is like a slight
Okay.
blurred image. And I don't know if you can see there's a one line of type on the
Yep.
side, and that's it. But it's such a beautiful cover, color wise and
Yep.
imagery, that
Yeah.
it's irresistible to
The
me, to look
contrast
at.
between the figure and the background is what really stands out to me there, and then just the
Yeah.
texture of it from the photo. But yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
And so the next one is Judith could talk about.
Mm.
This is one we worked on. The jump shot photograph for the album. It's called
Yep.
Album. I did a clear sticker on the outside, so the type is on. You rip it off. You're left with a Dieter Zill photograph of Joan, and inside are major photographs. But I don't want to go into the story; it'd be too
Mm.
long. I want to just finish this up. But
Yeah.
this is basically one of our
Did you
classic.
open it up to show the inside as well?
Yeah, I just
Mm.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Or
no, you're
photography.
a
Yep. Yep.
lot of photographs, and the back cover is a black and white by Robert Ellis, played against color
Hmm.
photographs, which I think is great. Playing black and white
Mm.
against color, and this we're playing black and white photographs with color.
Is there an album by
And then the
isn't
travel
there a
photograph.
U2 there's
Yeah,
a U2 album cover that has a very similar look with the black and white with the color, I think, Acton Baby, maybe a very similar vibe to that in yeah,
I worked on
yeah,
Achtung Baby. I worked on two albums that Brian Eno
yeah,
produced. Of course, Fear of Music and
yeah,
Achtung Baby. Peter Seville did the initial design in Dublin. I worked on the USA parts with Island Records in the United
cool.
States. Um, and I was full. That U2
Yeah,
cover is
yeah,
gorgeous. It's got all the photographs right
mhm.
on the front. Anton Corbin, a
Very
little
similar in
square
style,
photograph.
very similar in
Mm.
style. Yeah.
And that's filled with wonderful image concept like the
Mm.
45s. Actually, there's a shot of a car, a graffiti in the book "You Two and I" by Anton Corbin, an
Mhm.
amazing book of his photographs and stories. He has a picture of the car shot with graffiti on the side. Now, what he did with that is he took a section of that graffiti art and put it on each of the 45s or 12 inches, and so you can piece them
Ah,
together
so
when you
there's a
bought
nice
all of
idea.
them.
Yeah.
But people didn't know that where he
Yeah.
shot that from.
Cool. Like it.
But Anton Corbin was, to me, one of the greatest photographers still existing because of his color and black and
Mm.
white.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
it's it's a
he's a
really
very
strong look,
strong
isn't
black
it?
and white
Yeah.
photographer
Agree
also.
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to add about the Joan Jett cover.
Yeah,
What we did, you know, we wanted, you know, that jump. It was such a beautiful shot, so beautiful. What we wanted to do, Spencer and I wanted to do, is to emphasize her,
Mhm.
you know, as opposed to the background, you know, so that it's not just, you know, the yellow background and then
Mm.
Joan. So what we did, we high laminate, you know, in the printing process.
Right.
right.
What they did was, and you can't tell that from just looking at it on the screen, but if you're holding the album cover, the actual cover in your hand, you see that the image of
Yeah.
Joan is a high lam. You know, they put a laminated her image, so
It's
it's
called a
kind of shiny.
spot varnish, Judith.
Right.
Spot
Yeah.
It's
varnish,
called a
yeah.
spot
And then
varnish.
the
Right.
background is
Yeah.
matte.
Yep.
That
Right.
yellow is
Right.
matte. So it's almost like trying to make it a little bit three-dimensional,
Yeah, I was going to say I'm almost
or
3D.
trying to give it dimension,
Yeah.
which which it did do. So that was
Mm,
another
nice.
little trick for making an album
There you go.
cover,
Yep.
great.
That turned out right. This was Joseph Arthur. We designed a special letterpress CD, which is gorgeous. But we did this cover. He did this cover. He came to me. He showed me this cover, and I said, "Wow, what a photograph!" I said, "Joseph, no type on the front," and he printed it that way. He sent me a copy, and look at it,
Mm.
it's gorgeous. I thought it's kind of like an old feeling with the angel wings, and I mean, it's like one of
Yeah.
these really amazing
Like an
cover
old black and white
photographs.
film
This
almost.
looks
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
yeah, like an old
Yeah.
an old photograph, but it's beautifully
Like a
uh
silver tint or whatever.
and this right. This is
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Clever.
And the next one is one of our famous,
Yeah.
of course, Pink Floyd. If I don't show this, I'll
Probably
be
one of the
killed,
most
right?
underrated Pink Floyd albums, I think. I think it's a great album. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
you're right.
Mm.
Absolutely right. And I used to talk to Storm Thorgerson a couple of times in my life. And in fact, Judith and I met Storm in New York at one point. At the end of his life,
Mm,
he's a great person, but he had
yeah,
great stories.
yeah.
He used to tell me stories about
Mm.
this album. They wanted to hoist a pig. Here's a good one. They wanted to hoist a real pig
A
in the
real
air,
one.
not the little pig that you see on here. And so
Yeah.
what happened is, listen to this. They hoisted the pig up and the rope broke.
Ah. Oh gosh, that sounds
And the
yeah.
rope broke. They actually wanted the pig, a real pig, on the cover.
Oh dear.
And so when I heard that
Well,
story, I could never forget that. But he
they
was
must have
on
been
it. I
on
mean, it's a true
something. I don't
story.
know what, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
know.
Everybody was.
This is Afghan
Mm.
wigs. This is a
Yeah.
great cover. Afghan wigs. It's highly illustrated.
Great. Yeah.
I love this cover. Judith and I like this cover. And on the
Yeah.
inside, you get a
Yeah.
beautiful.
There's a lot of animation going on there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like one of those great ones that we show. And then, of course, we have
Mm.
Vargas, the cars.
Yeah.
No type on the front. Another beautiful cover with no type
Mhm.
on the front. And
Known for the Playboy photograph images of illustrations.
and
You know,
the end of it, I'm
Mark,
going to bring up
you know
the.
who he is? Spencer. He
This
may
is
not.
the what?
Spencer, getting back to Vargas, I'm not
Yep.
sure. Do you know who Vargas is,
No,
Mark?
no, I don't. Maybe yeah. Fill me in. Fill me in.
Yeah, so he did a lot uh, of things for Playboy
Okay. Yeah.
magazine. A lot, like hundreds of images for Playboy.
Okay.
So we'll end up with this. This is the Grammy Award winner, Robert Rauschenberg, Speaking in Tongues, limited edition in a plastic, which if I take it apart, will fall all over the place. There's a little
No,
different
you can't
overlays
do
for
that.
plastic,
What's
but
going
this
on
is
there? Is
gorgeous.
that
I mean, this is like
Yeah.
product design, right, Judith? This is like what they call
okay?
product design.
Yeah.
Well, that's I mean, we have a famous museum quality fine artist
Yeah.
doing
Yep.
an album cover.
So is that kind of a
So he had to have
PVC cover, and then it's the discs, are the picture discs? Is that yeah?
You'd open it up and there's overlays
Right.
of colors,
Okay.
overlays actually,
Mm.
and they underneath that
Right.
is the
Yep.
disc. It's very complex, but it falls apart. You open it up, it could fall
Mm.
apart, but you could take these pieces out. But it's so beautiful, the
Yeah.
concept, you
Yeah.
know. And
But that was only doable because it was Rauschenberg doing it, and
right.
I can't. Spencer and I, we can't even imagine what the budget
Oh
on that
yeah.
was. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
nothing like we were ever given. It must have been.
Yeah, I mean, I when I worked on Fear of Music, the concepts would be like the covers in a
Mm.
styrofoam with plastic and a disappearing ink and electronic lights. And Warner Brothers said, "No, we can't do that. We can't do that. It's going to cost us $40." And then Jerry said, "Well, what about a real tile, a vinyl tile finish cover?" "No, we can't do that." Warner Brothers would go nuts. But
Yeah.
when they got to that
Okay.
one, it's interesting.
Well, because it
Later,
was Rauschenberg. Come on,
yeah, it's Rauschenberg. So they say,
who's going
"Oh,
to turn
okay,
his
no problem."
idea
Right.
down?
Exactly. But they did what Judith's pointing out is very
Mm.
important. Is that there'd be times when there could be these, like we did limited edition a metal box for Lou Reed and a peel-off banana
Yeah.
color form idea for the velvet, which is beautiful. And that costs money. I mean, that definitely costs money. But they're into special packaging, and that's the other area. Little
but
CD
this is
special
we'll get to
packaging,
that. Yeah,
which
we'll
was
get to that
very big.
in
Yeah.
a little bit. But I think this is the fantastic thing about the vinyl format is this because of its form and its factor and the fact that it just is by definition larger than CD and all. Of course, as soon as you get to the digital realm, you lose all of this entirely. But there's just so much more you can do, isn't there? With packaging and product design. So I think this is part of why.
Yeah.
This is part of why vinyl still survives, I think, is because of this design, which is why what you guys do is so important, because the reason vinyl survives is because I think, okay, yeah, there's the sound quality aspects and there's the hi-fi audiophile stuff, but if it didn't feel like a luxurious product or something that was an interesting product that people wanted and desired to own, then it it just wouldn't be the same, would it? It's a whole package. It's a whole package.
Yeah.
Right. No, you're right.
And
Exactly.
it's not the same because people write articles, Mark, about how it used to be when at least when I was in my teens, growing up in Brooklyn, and going to a record store and then not only just going through the bins, but once finally deciding to buy an album, taking that album home, putting it on my record player, taking the album out, putting it on, playing it, but then I sit down and I hold that 12-inch in my hand and I'm looking at the image and reading liner notes, and it's just like the experience of it. I know there's tons and tons of articles written about this, and what an incredibly what a loss that is to the generation that is now today without 12-inch. I mean, it is
Well, right now,
it's a
let me talk
resurgence,
about,
but nothing like
Judith.
it was.
I got to talk about this. This
Yeah.
is very important.
I know, but it's nothing like it was, Spencer.
Yeah, right. There's nothing like it was, but it's still important. It's on the A list of every record company. I'm a 6-time Grammy judge, by the way, in album packaging, and Judith and I both of us design every year, Making Vinyl event. I got to talk about that because that's founded by Brian Eckes and Larry Jaffe every year for 5 years. Speakers like Jack White, Little Steven, and Michael Kurtz of Record Store Days talk there. It's sold out. It's bringing back vinyl, and I see in the entries, like we had over 250 entries for Making Vinyl. Gorgeous. These were intricate packaging. We're talking about the 70s when they had die cuts for Led Zeppelin and Rolling Stones. This is the stuff that's coming out right now. I mean, we're talking about heavy hitting packaging, dynamic, and it's increasing every year in this event. And so when you see that, it gives you life, because Judith and I, most of our lives were in vinyl. That's what our life was. And so, but what I'm seeing now it's not in millions, but good quantity of, by the way, good quantity of, and also 45s, by the way, big time.
And by the way, we just finished designing a 12-inch.
We just finished a new beautiful vinyl. It's a dynamically art-oriented illustration by Keith Carter. And we have designed with Justin, Judith's son, Justin Cavusi. These are beautiful packaging. It's going to be released in Australia. Artist called Keith Cook, and the album's called Rock and Roll Riot. And it's a beautiful package. So we're back again in our own way in our life, which we're so happy about. And the packaging is really nice. It's going to come out, but vinyl's back,
absolutely,
Mark,
absolutely,
back,
and I'm so glad to hear it. And of course, that's what my publication Sound Matters is all about, celebrating. The fact that the vinyl format, I think, in many ways will live on for all those reasons we've just mentioned. But you have done some stuff for CD. So, and I know that one of the things you wanted to talk about was kind of the differences in terms of CD packaging, in terms of designing for CD versus designing for vinyl. Do you want to go into some of that?
Yeah, I mean, CDs. Yeah, the CD is interesting because I was in an article in Smithsonian Magazine in '96 about CD packaging. Judith and I did an amazing limited edition show in New York, and they did a photographic and an interview with art directors about CD packaging. And of course, what we all turned down was plastic.
Mm.
And what I find now is board packaging's big time. That's where you get into more of a permanency thing. Also, the graphics, very important. Go from front to back. With plastic that falls apart, the graphics. It's not
Also, we're taking, as well as the environment. Don't forget that.
Yeah, the environment, but
The
more
environment.
important. Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. But more important, when you do a plastic CD, you got different parts. You got the booklet, you got the tray card, you got the da da da. Nothing stay. But on a board, you can go from front to back, inside.
It's more like a record.
You know, wait a minute. Let me show you something for a minute. Just hold on.
Do you feel the same about that, Judith, in terms of board versus the platform you get with you know, the jewel cases, the plastic cases? Is it?
Oh, absolutely. You know, absolutely. I mean, we did design. We did a lot of plastic design covers with the jewel case covers, and I really did not enjoy doing that. We always tried to talk our clients into doing, you know, board, but of course it was more expensive. And
let me show you this. Let me show you this. This is a beautiful CD that Judith had a big play in. I had a play in. Letterpress.
Which is our
the bird art, which I saw, and I said, that's got to be the front cover. Otherwise, Judith took hold of this, and this is like, you can touch it, right, Judith? This is like, there's relief on it. Color is outrageous.
As you say, you can go from front to back.
What are you showing? I'm sorry.
What are you showing, Spencer? Here, what are we looking at again?
This is Joseph Arthur. Joseph Arthur's the album.
Oh yeah.
And so Judith had a very big play in this, but she took the artwork from Joseph and literally put it together into a piece. But the CD, everything is like really beautiful. You know, it's like you take the CD off, and
you don't have that same size.
You got art behind it.
You don't have that same size that you've got with a record, but on the board, like you say, as a canvas to work on for you as a designer, it's so much better, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we enjoyed this because you're going the extra length here. Letterpress is so expensive, but it has that texture in it, which you can't. Like this, the regular CD is very dull. The regular commercial CD is dull.
Yeah, I'm sure.
This is where you can illuminate art, color. So, I mean, what we're talking about here is how important a board cover as opposed to a plastic jewel box, by the way, that falls apart. Falls apart. You know about plastic, just
and they over time as well. It's not just that they fall apart, but they get kind of scuffed to the point where it gets all it kind of almost becomes hazy. Like the plastic becomes hazy over time.
I mean, and they have things like 2 CDs in a pack. You know this. You're aware there's 2 CDs. And you open up, and the plastic can't even hold the 2 CDs. And after a while, it's so heavy that falls apart. And it's crazy. The whole thing, the whole idea of plastic.
I completely agree. I'm just conscious we're coming up to the hour point here. So if you'd like, I mean, I know you guys have been really busy of late, really, you know, promoting album design. You've got elements of stuff that you're doing on YouTube and shows that you're taking part of, and a lot of the activities you're doing, I think, to try and promote the vinyl resurgence in many regards, but also just highlight the importance of the design process and how it plays a part in that. Do you want to talk through some of those things? Do you want to go through some of the stuff you've been?
Yeah, I mean, I have a series on HDTV. So far, we've done a best design music packaging series. Includes special CD packaging, LPs, and 45s. About 175 pieces talked about as a learning tool and shown on YouTube. And now I'm completing. We're both completing famous designers interview series, which is award-winning designers, about 10 to 12 designers in a hook locked together on a YouTube learning tool. And then, you know, things like that. And then Judith and I are doing our own HDTV show launch in the fall of our own show, which is visual. And why we wanted to go to visual rather than radio is because what can you see on radio? I mean, you
it's
can't,
a visual topic,
right? And we're visual people. and I think people can see everything on our interviews, which is. But we're active with that.
Yeah.
We finished the vinyl. We'll probably get more work, and I think, and the interviews. We're getting a lot of interviews too. So we're very happy right now with what and we're very happy to be on this show because I've seen your emails on your magazine and what you write about. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do
And I
too.
think it's very important.
Thank
Very
God.
important.
Keep up that work
I
because
appreciate your kind words. Yeah.
hopefully, I mean, I don't know if vinyl will ever be in a place that it was in originally way back in our time when we just it was so delicious to be holding an album cover. It was just such an experience that you have to experience for yourself in order to know how amazing it is.
100%.
And
Yeah.
and you're helping that, Mark. You're helping to bring back some of those times, and
It's good to hear.
for some people.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll ever reach the point that it was originally, where we had those, oh gosh, miss those album stores that the record stores where you would go in, and sometimes not only would you pick out some of your favorite albums, but you might meet your boyfriend there, or
Yeah,
your
these
husband.
places, these places were
Well,
social
you
hubs,
know,
weren't they? And yeah.
They were huge social hubs, and
but Judith, there's a lot of vinyl record stores
Yeah.
now in the United
no, I
States.
know, but
mean,
it's not like it ever was.
Oh no, it wasn't
Remember,
like Tower Records. You didn't have.
like the talking it, not like it ever was.
Oh yeah. I know. I totally agree.
The other thing I
But
wanted.
you gotta understand something, and Mark knows about this. Vinyl is coming back. There is a
No, I understand
quantity
that,
of it.
Spencer. I'm not debating that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's not at a place that it was.
No,
And
it wasn't.
one of the
No,
things
no,
that
never.
Spencer and I did
Yeah.
when we started, when the work for designing 12 inches and even CD started to sort of fade because record companies started to fade. A lot of record companies were going out of business. So Spencer and I recreated ourselves and started designing books. And there's I want to point out the 45 book, Spencer, that we did.
I'm just showing it now. 545 books.
Yeah.
So so we went into again, visual. That's what counts, the image. And we picked out every one of those 45 covers.
Oh, great. Yeah. It's a beautiful looking book. Where can people buy the book, Judith?
Well, you get it on Amazon. You go straight to Amazon. It's the easiest place on it. You can get it used very good, Mark.
I'll tell you what I'll do, both of you, is I will put a link to that in the description of this video when it goes live. I'll also put a link to some of the shows that you're talking about that you've been doing recently, the HTTV stuff and the art of album cover show that you've been doing as well. So we'll make sure we'll put that in there. But it feels like you guys talk about the Spencer, you talk about vinyl coming back, and Judith, you talk about that experience of the record store and the importance of it and the experience of it that we've lost somewhat. One thing I did want to say, one question I did want to ask you just before we kind of start to wrap up was, what is it that you think is driving the resurgence in vinyl? What is it at the core of it that means, even though people have access to streaming platforms and the convenience of all that, and they've at the touch of a button they can get hold of anything, why does vinyl still survive?
I'll tell you the answer to that. It's one word: sound.
Yeah.
Sound. And because musicians today, a lot of them, I've just interviewed so many, I know so many that are putting out vinyl besides their CD. They know the importance of it, and we have to also recognize the hip hop DJs
kept it going
through this whole period that kept vinyl alive, even through the dead period up to now. They've kept it going. So I think it's a combination. But the important word to me is sound. That they recognize that the sound is better, right? And that is what's making it, and that people recognize that. So that's what's really the important thing. And now you can get 180 gram, vinyl. You get all this stuff. I get a book. There's so much vinyl out there right now you can buy. and it's just
It is unbelievable.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I think it's,
And what
you
do
So
you
I
that's
think,
wanted
my
to add,
view.
Judith?
if I
Yeah.
may.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Judith.
Yeah, what I think, I mean, I agree with Spencer that it's the sound quality. For example, I have a son in his early 30s, and he refuses to listen. He doesn't like listening to the streaming. He's still buying albums, 12 inches. He listens to music on a record player that he
Oh,
has.
great.
He
Yeah.
loves,
Oh, good for him.
the
Yeah.
purity of that sound. But I want to also add that along with the sound, now you have, independent musicians that can, um, that can, uh, you know, make their own
Hmm.
albums, and they can create their own art for that album. And that's technology.
Yeah.
Technology has helped the indie
Mm.
musician not just
Definitely.
come out with their music and create their own music. They don't need a record company. They can do it themselves.
Yeah.
They can record it. They can promote it, the whole thing.
Yeah.
but
Almost
but they
start
can
to finish. Yeah.
also create their own art.
Mm.
and and that's where, with this technology, which didn't exist in the old days. When I first met Spencer, we didn't talk about this,
Mm.
but Spencer was sitting at his drawing table doing paste ups and mechanicals. I don't even know if some young people even know what that is, in
And
reference
the
to
design stuff.
design.
Yeah.
And we were ordering, we couldn't, at the flip of a finger, decide that we're going to change a font from a 2-point to a 10-point. We had to actually go to a type
Yeah.
house and order the type. And then we had to put that 2-point, 3-point, 4-point next to the image and see which
Yeah.
one looked better or fit
No,
better.
no
Now
Adobe
you could just do it
Illustrator
in
in those days. Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
so technology has also
Uh-huh.
helped.
It's very liberating
With,
for that for people of coming through in terms of bands and artists. There's a lot of opportunity there, as you say. You can if
a lot of
with the
opportunity. Yeah.
willpower and a little bit of knowledge, you could do everything yourself from start to finish.
Yeah.
So I
Exactly.
mean, that's quite a liberating thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's yeah,
Yeah, I want to add to this that I'm a big collector of
yeah,
LP covers and 45 covers. I got over about 1,045
mm,
covers, by the way, and a huge amount of LPs, just best design stuff. And collecting it made me realize through the world of these places where you buy in England, a lot from
mm,
England, by the way, Mark, that there are all these 45s. I mean, tons of these groups that
mm,
put out 45s and LP. And as a collector, that's where you get the real
yeah,
feedback. You in collecting, you see what's really
hmm.
out there, and that it's enormous right now. I got to tell you,
It's
it's
so
really
good to see,
big.
isn't it? Yeah, it's really good to see.
It is good to see. It's one of.
And I got to add something. We have a Vinyl
I was
Talk
about to get to
site
that. Yeah,
that's in capital letters,
yeah.
Vinyl Talk, on Facebook, which you Vinyl
I
talk
think
about
that's
vinyl, and we got a lot of members. I hope we're
mhm,
all on there. You could join on Facebook, and I think it's important. It adds to the vinyl resurgence
mhm.
support on our lives. So
Yeah.
that's the only
No,
added
thanks for
thing I
mentioning
wanted
that.
to add.
I was going to end kind of on that point. So, how people can get involved in the community, and one of the ways is this group that you've
Mm,
created on Facebook. So, I will put that in the description below. So, if anybody wants to come and talk about vinyl, as Spencer said, it's called Vinyl Talk, and you're welcome to come along, of course, and join the group and talk about vinyl, the resurgence of vinyl, and share
right,
your
right,
experience.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
as Judith was saying, try to recreate some of that feeling of the record stores of old, if you like. So I think that's a really important thing that you're doing there. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you for having us on. Also, this is a great thing you're doing, and I just want to reinforce the fact that we're very happy to be on here and add to our knowledge
Great. No,
out there.
thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that process. I think to get that insight, because I've always viewed vinyl as being a complete package thing. And so the artwork side of things is just, it's that gateway to the music,
Mm.
as you were
Yeah,
putting forward
Yes.
before. So this has been a really important show for me to do, and bring your experience onto that with so many different types of album covers from over the years with some, some really well-known names as well. It's invaluable. So thank you ever so much. And I think
Thank
we'll,
you, Mark.
Thank you.
thank you ever so much, and
Thank
thank you to
you.
everybody who's been watching this today. If you want to head over to yoursoundmasters.com, that's the online vinyl magazine that I run, and of course check out Judith and check out Spencer's work and check out their community that they created in Facebook as well, and get involved. So without further ado, I think we'll call it a day and say thanks ever so much for watching. Cheers.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ciao, as they say. Keep the
Definitely,
music live.
definitely.
All right. Bye.
Bye.